Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Dhamma of Peace series number 48. Mindfulness of Dhamma. Dhamma Nupassana. Satipatthana is observing or watching to know the true nature of mind and body as it is. Or you can put it in a different way. Satipatthana is observing and watching to experience intuitively they are arising and passing. Mindfulness of the body is watching or observing matter in the body to know the true nature. Mindfulness of the feeling is the experience of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feelings. Mindfulness of the mind is the observation of consciousness and its associates. Mindfulness of Dhamma is the observation of the true nature of process, or you can just simply say Dhamma. Those are the four foundations: body, feeling, consciousness, and Dhamma. In this talk, we are going to discuss a little deeper into what is mindfulness of Dhamma, Dhamma Nupassana. So let's use an example. Mindfulness of Dhamma or Dhamma Nupassana is, let's use seeing a process. When you see something, you have to have a good eye. And that eye is made up of matter, materiality. And also, one also needs an object to see. It needs an object to see, which is form. Also materiality. Eye is the material, which is a part of the body, so it is the materiality in the body. Object is outside. It's in a form and shapes and size and color and so on. That is the material outside the body. And when those two come in contact, the eye sees a form, an object. When those two come into contact, the effect is the arising of seeing consciousness. One is materiality in the body. Second one is materiality in the outside, where one can see. And the third is the consciousness arising from the contact. Even though they are described separately, when it happens, all these three happen or occurs spontaneously together. So that's what seeing means, and that seeing is Dhamma Nupassana. But let's see further. When you are seeing, you must take that seeing as a process. You must take that seeing as a process of coming together of the three objects. Three objects come together and seeing arises, and that whole package is a process. The three objects, it's the I, external form, and consciousness. That is how a process is formed. And if you can observe or take seeing as a process, then you are practicing Dhamma Nupassana. Similarly, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking, they operate in the same fashion. So let's go a little bit, one more hearing, just to sink into our mind what the process is. When we see the word hearing, first and foremost, you need an eardrum, a good ear that can hear sound, eardrum. That's the internal material in the body. And also, there must be a sound to hear. A sound comes from outside. When two objects strike, it creates a sound. It produces a sound. And if that sound is straight in the direction of the ear, one will hear that sound. But if there's a wall in between, one cannot hear the sound. So the sound wave, when two materials strikes, the sound produced. That sound wave travel through the air. If there's no barrier, it comes straight to the eardrum and came into contact. And when those two materials, external and internal, come together, hearing consciousness also arises. Without those two come into contact, there is no hearing consciousness. But as we have said before, external form, which is a sound, in this case, internal material, eardrum, and the hearing consciousness, they all come together at the same time, not one before the other. Instantly, they come into contact, and suddenly, hearing arises. Hearing means it is a process, not I hear, you hear, or they heard. It's a process. That process requires these three elements: internal material, external material, it's a sound, and the hearing consciousness. So that is, if one knows that, not in the sense of I hear, you hear, or they hear, but it is a process. If one knows in such a way, when one is hearing, then one is practicing Dhamma Nupassana. So let's call it, this is the phase one. If one has known intuitively the becoming and disappearing of the process, see, it's not intellectual thinking and dissecting and figuring out. Intuitively, instantly, know this process and know the becoming and disappearing of the process, or arising and passing away of the process. If that is the case, at that moment there is no lobha and no dosa related to them. No greed or no aversion that is related to that process. But one must know intuitively. And this lobha and dosa related to that, them cannot arise, because one is not taking it as a person, an individual, a self, or a soul. One is taking it as a process, and also see that arising and passing away. So at that moment there is no lobha, no dosa. When one is practicing this repeatedly, that means eventually one becomes mature. And one becomes mature. It takes quite some time. When one is observing the process, one can see the objects of the process piece by piece. One can see the internal material, one can see the external material, one can see the consciousness that arises together, piece by piece. Not just like a whole bundle, clearly, sharply, piece by piece, that they are arising together and they are passing away together. So let's take an example. If one see and experience an object, let's use a rose. Okay? If one see and experience, first of all you see, then you experience a rose. Because the rose is in the eyesight, straight line of eyesight, and then there's a seeing consciousness. At that moment, if one judges it as beautiful or not beautiful, oh, what a beautiful rose, oh, what a, like dried up, and that, oh God, it's not beautiful. You make a judgment on the nature of the rose. And at that moment, lobha and dosa arises. Greed and aversion arises. When you say it is beautiful, you want to have it, you like to smell it. If you say, oh, it's not beautiful, it's all dried up, then there's a dislike, aversion arises, because one is not mindful. That's why it is essential to see the process, Dhamma Nupassana, the process. If you see the process, such thing will never arise. Such aversion and greed will never arise. So using rose as an example, then if we step on it, in the same way what we have just talked about it, if one see mindlessly, the process of the three objects collectively. Okay? Mindlessly is being not mindful, not heedful. And still you are seeing the process, which means external, internal material, and consciousness. But you see the three objects collectively. Okay? You see, but there's no mindfulness. And then you will take it as, I see. They see. Which means one is identifying with self or soul. Okay. If you have no mindfulness, automatically one identifies with I, or self, or a soul. And that is a wrong view. However, if one considers the three objects separately, individually, which arises and passes away, okay? You don't see it collectively, you don't take it as collectively, but you can see piece by piece, but they are all arising together, passing away together. At that moment, there is no I. And as there is no I, that view is the correct view, samadhi, knowing as it is, knowing its true nature. If one cannot observe or watch with mindfulness, one will know the conceptual nature of the object or event. If one cannot observe or watch with mindfulness, one will only know the conceptual nature of the object or event and take that concept as reality. So there are a lot of people in this world are like that. We take that concept as reality. And the pleasure derived from repeatedly observing the concept as reality is lobha. You want it. And we all know once you want something, many events follow right after that to get it. And that is samsara. And that is as much as I can explain about what Dhamma Nupassana is, so that it sinks into your mind and be able to get rid of the concept of I, ego, self, soul, and attain the correct view, samadhi, as soon as possible. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much.